he squawking about, Buffy? Hey guys, Chad with New England Homesteaders here. It's been weeks since I uploaded video. I have shot so much footage over the last 3 or 4 weeks, but I just have had zero time to get anything done. We had our week up at the beach for our family vacation, and have been back and forth to the cabin a lot. The loggers have been there. They pulled out yesterday, so I'm gonna head up there today and check out the whole big clearing and give you guys a little tour of that, and get the drone up in the air too and get some good footage from the air to see how things have changed over the last month. But I was out here this morning just taking care of the chickens, and thought I'd give you a peek. Something I've been doing lately that's really helped out with the mess in the coop. So when I've been cleaning out their coop, got the big door right here that I just open up and drag all of the droppings and the shavings out and spread it into a pile, or put it in a pile here in the coop, and then they just spread it out and break it down, and that seemed to work pretty well. So the last couple times that I've mowed the lawn, I've just dumped a couple of big catch bags of the grass clippings in here, and that really gives them something to do. And then in the morning when I dump their scratch feed and some grain and whatever compost stuff we've got left over, I drop that in here, and then it really makes them work for it, and they do a really good job at spreading this out and breaking it down. And then when it rains, this isn't a big mud pit, so that's definitely something recommended. It's helped out a lot. But I thought I'd give you a quick tour of just sort of the updates around here. The kale has done pretty well. I haven't thinned it enough so that the plants haven't all grown big, but I've just been cleaning out this bed and feeding them. We got a couple of big eggplants. Fried one of those up the other night, was great. Brussels sprouts, I'm not sure if any of you have grown them before, but they're definitely taking their sweet time. And actually there's one down in the bottom there, looking like it's starting, so looks like we still got a little bit of time to go. Our spontaneous beans that grew, we'll see, break one of these open and see what they are. Looks like there might be red beans of some sort. Black beans maybe. Yep, got some black beans, so kind of funny that those just spontaneously sprouted. But that's pretty cool. And then tomatoes and our sunflowers, or tomatoes, are just sprung up everywhere from last year. And then we got some giant sunflowers. And this one mammoth one that grew spontaneously here, I just clipped it off yesterday and hung it in the garage to dry because the birds were starting to get it. It's a nice big head of seeds, and I'm going to take those up to the cabin and get them planted up there in the spring. This is the first year that we planted tomatoes here against this fence, and there was no air circulation. So this plant disease on the tomatoes, this brown spot, really just ravaged these plants, and I saw it start at the bottom and spread all the way up. Here you can see a little bit starting on this plant. So it's basically just decimated the tomatoes. But these big ones, as they start to ripen, I've just been giving them to the chickens, and they absolutely love it. So that's worked out okay. And if we take a walk over here to the garden, our cucumbers did not do well at all this year. And when I started doing some research as to what the problem was, it seems like it's a pollination problem. So thankfully next year with the bees, we shouldn't have that problem. But if you look at all these cucumbers, they're all stunted. A lot of them are curved. They've got this funny little stubby, skinny thing at the end, and that just has not worked well at all. Next week, when the last of these potatoes have died off here, I'm gonna harvest those potatoes, so we'll definitely make a video of that and see how well we did with these 3 big bins of potatoes. And then I've got all my trees here, and there's a couple of them that didn't do well. You can see these 2 right here really don't have any leaves on them. And then I had one over here that didn't do so well. Basically Right down at the bottom there, they've got this new shoot that came out of the graft, above the graft, so that's good. Not quite sure what to do with this tree though. There's another one over here, I think a peach, that's got something similar going on that's kind of funky. You can see that right there. Most of the tree is dead, but it's got that shoot that came out the side. And it's got that one that came out right there. So hopefully we'll figure out where some of this stuff is going up at the cabin in the next, I don't know, I guess in the next month and a half, and we can get some of this stuff moved up there. All the grapes and the raspberries, everything else seems to be doing well. My goji berries are finally taken off here. You can see these are the goji berries. There's 2 of those that have really taken off nice. And then the elderberries from my uncle all seem to be doing well. They're all right there. So I'm gonna head up to the cabin and we'll take a look around up there. Morning guys, Sunday morning up here at the homestead. I was up here this weekend working on some projects. There definitely is not enough time to get everything done. It's 9 months until we move into the cabin here behind me, and I swear I remember a few days ago when it was 18 months. So time is just slipping by way too fast. So much to do. But a lot's happened since the last time I made a video. We've been so busy. But the timber guys are all but pulled out of here. They've got about 8 or 10 loads of logs left over in the clearing. So we'll go take a look at that. The homestead is really starting to come together. Really excited to see our vision sort of come into life. But there definitely is a lot to do. So it's Sunday morning, and I got up and planted some trees this morning. I planted a couple of flowering dogwoods and a nice big flowering pear. One of them over kind of where the house is going to be, and the other 2 right here by the cabin. But one of the cool things that happened over the last couple weeks, we had a cookout, and we invited the lady who we bought from, and she came up. We were a little nervous that she'd see all the clearing and everything done behind us here, that she might be kind of upset, but she was actually really excited because it looks a lot like when she grew up. This property had been in her family since 1924, and it was all sheep farm. So this was all pasture back here behind us. And if you look over my shoulder right here, this picture she gave us is of her grandmother sitting, her great-grandmother, sitting right in about this same spot right here with this view back behind her. So that's really cool. And over here behind the bees, if I kind of turn around this way, right back in there is a chimney from the old homestead. And she actually gave us a painting that her dad did and a couple of pictures of what the homestead used to look like back in the 20s. So that's all pretty exciting to actually have some history with the place. You know, usually when you move into a house, it's just a house. You don't really know anything about the history of it. But to actually capture this and see what was here back in the 20s and what it used to look like, and you know, now that we've got our sheep ordered and everything, so it was kind of going to come full circle. But let me take a walk and show you out into the clearing. So as you come in here, this is actually going to be our driveway right here. I put a chain across there, and as soon as the logging guys pull out of here, I'm going to put a chain across here. We've got people driving in here, and my neighbor told me he heard 4-wheelers or somebody bombing around in here on a dirt bike the other day, so we're going to shut that down pretty quick. So this will be closed in and filled back in with the topsoil and get some trees planted to give us some privacy, so we'll have a nice curved driveway as it comes in there. Here's one of the flowering dogwoods that I planted this morning. So this will basically be our front yard. Our house is going to sit right in here somewhere, sort of facing us. This is the last of the logs that need to get pulled out of here. That should happen this week. And we've got this really cool big pine stump that they left over there. And I told them to leave it. We're actually going to see if we can get somebody to carve that into a totem pole or something cool like that. But here's the clearing, and I never would have guessed that this was hiding under the thick forest that was here. It almost looks like a savanna. So we've got about 4 or 5 acres cleared here. That's basically going to be pasture and the homestead site and an animal barn. There's he left me I think that's over 100 cubic yards of mulch, of wood chips, and would have cost me probably about $40 to $50 a yard to get that delivered. And there's actually more than that there. That's a load and a half, so that's about 45 or 50 tons of wood chips, and I got it for less than $6 a yard, so that was a bargain. And then he also left me these big pine stumps that we're going to end up using for some bridges and stuff to get across the streams. So a little bit more cleanup to do, and when they were pulling out of here and I was realizing how much work is going to be involved in getting this, what you see here, ready to plant as pasture, it's definitely overwhelming, but it's coming together, and I'm pretty excited to actually see it happening. There's so much to do though between now and next June. Somebody asked me, when were we going to be building the house and when are we moving in? I said, well, all I know is that in June of 18, we're moving in here, June 20th. We're moving into the cabin, and a month later my sheep show up. So totally excited about that. Lots to do. I'm actually hiring the timber guys are going to come back in here in another week, and they're basically going to stump and clean up most of this for me out here. So sometime in the next several weeks, probably going to end up paying a lime company with a big truck to come in and lime this 3 acres for me, and put down some fertilizer, and then I will use my ATV with a spreader, and we'll get a good pasture blend down here. But one more spot I'll give you a look at, and then we'll cut to some drone footage. It's pretty cool to see this rock wall, for whatever reason, does not follow the contour of the hill. It actually kind of cuts out into the field, but it actually created this habitat, I guess, for these oak trees to all grow up out of the wall. So now we've got this really cool visual feature here with all these big oak trees that are 50, 60 years old, grown up out of here. And it's pretty neat in that picture with her great-grandmother. You can't really see any of those trees, obviously, because they weren't there. That was probably 1924. This was a big pasture and apple trees and everything growing out here. Those giant oak trees from one of my earlier videos are right back down over the hill. We'll take a peek at those, and those are probably 200 or 250 years old, so those were definitely here back then, long time ago. The only thing I'm worried about, a lot of these oak trees that you see here were all grown. They basically grew up surrounded by other trees, so they were shielded from the wind and the big storms. So as they fill out and these canopies get bigger, it's basically going to be like a big wind sail, and they may not be able to withstand the storms this winter, so we may end up losing some of these. But if you look back behind me here, this way, we only lost 3 oak trees in this whole clearing that they had to cut down back over there where those logs are stacked. So we got pretty lucky. This was almost all just pines and scrub, and it's a lot of really old rotted stumps like this that should just crumble. And for me to tackle this with an ATV and some rakes and tools is just completely a daunting task, but they should make pretty short work of it in a couple of days with an excavator in here. So looking forward to seeing this all kind of leveled out and cleaned up, and get my pastures planted. So stay tuned for that. I just walked over across this big pasture area to the edge of this hill, and I'll give you a peek down this hill. Another very daunting task. I just think there's no way I can work these hillsides and get them planted this fall. So I'm going to focus on getting the pastures planted, and then my strategy for this hillside, quite steep, as you see. There's my old pasture road. It was lined with barbed wire right over there across the hill, and then we've got a bridge right back down in there that the guys built for me, so we need to shore that up a little bit, but maybe we can take a peek down there real quick. My strategy for managing this hillside and getting it ready for planting is to get my handful of goats next spring, and I'm going to have a fence along the bottom of the hill right down here. And then I'm also going to have a fence up here at the top of the hill, which separates the flat from the slope. And then I'll be able to carve this hillside into kind of small paddocks. And I'll send my goats and my chickens in there, and I'll pull all of these hard woody stems, all this hard sticks and debris out of here. And after the goats and chickens have their way in here, I think it's pretty much going to be ready to plant. Throw down some seed and lime and fertilizer, and we'll be able to get that going. And then once we've got our full design plan from those guys over at Whole Systems Design, we'll start working on our swales, which will stop the water from flowing off of this hillside, and we'll get all of our berry bushes and fruit and nut trees planted. So I'm accepting that it's going to be a lifetime project, but these next couple of years we'll really start to see some changes. So here are those two massive oak trees that are 200 plus years old. This thing is just giant. It's probably like 14 feet in circumference or something. This one's even bigger here. Need to get a shot of someone else standing next to it for scale, give you guys a true sense of how big this thing is. But just awesome old tree. I don't know if you guys can hear the stream. Decent amount of water flowing. It rained on Friday, I think, and there's still a decent amount of water flowing. A friend of mine is working on a ram pump that we're going to try to get installed, and we'll be able to pump water from the stream up onto the flat part of the hill here into a storage tank, which will then gravity feed troughs for the animals, and then the overflow will work its way back down into the pasture, back down here into the stream. So that'll be pretty cool. So there's definitely some videos in the future of some of those cool projects that we're working on. But just walking up the hill here and look at the homestead from the backside. There's my pile of wood chips seen from the backside. There's the cabin and the garage back over there. Somewhere around maybe 400 or 500 feet, I think. So this is going to be a pretty nice pasture here. And then there's another whole acre or two back down over in there that I'm not going to try to tackle until next year. As part of the home clearing or construction loan process, we'll try to get started working on the additional couple of acres over there. I got all I can handle right here for the fall. So stay tuned, and hope you guys have a great week.